You're listening to Women in Wellness, a program to help you create gorgeous growth for your blissful business in health and wellness. I'm Dr. Gabby, holistic health expert and founder of Women in Wellness, a one-of-a-kind course and community designed to empower and inform you about how to build a purposeful and profitable holistic business. I have an awesome guest with me today, Trudy Scott. Trudy is a certified nutritionist, author of the Anti-Anxiety Food Solution, host of the Anxiety Summit, and founder of everywoman over29.com. Hi, Trudy.
Hi, Dr. Gabby. Thanks very much for having me. I'm excited to be here, all the way from Australia, actually.
Isn't that so great? Technology lets us connect like this. I love it. So you are a holistic nutritionist, and I think most of the listeners understand what that is, but I mean, can you just tell me, what does it mean to you to be holistic as a nutritionist? Is there a certain kind of methodology or a certain philosophy that you use in your work?
The main thing is that I'm teaching women and practitioners about the importance of real whole food. So we want to go back to basics. We want to eat what our grandparents ate. So no processed food, but just real food, vegetables, fruit, meat, nuts, seeds, eggs, fish, real food, and then also using a functional medicine approach. So I will team up with functional medicine doctors and other practitioners, so we're getting to the root cause of each person's problem. And I work with women with anxiety, but the underlying cause for their anxiety could be gluten, it could be low zinc, it could be low iron, it could be low D, it could be all of the above. It could be an autoimmune condition, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, for example. So it's a matter of drilling down, finding the root cause for each person and addressing that. And that's holistic because we are using food, we're using functional medicine, and we're also looking at things like exercise and sleep and lifestyle and getting out of nature and everything else. So we want to use this holistic approach to help alleviate anxiety and panic attacks so people can feel great again, because we deserve to feel our absolute best.
Right. I think there's quite a few people out there who are feeling anxious, especially with all the things that are happening in America right now. I know for sure a lot of me and my friends are feeling anxious. Is there a difference in your practice between someone who suffers from anxiety because of a trauma or an accident or a life situation versus like a biological, like you're mentioning, food, diet, exercise? Is there a difference when it comes to anxiety?
I just look at, how do you feel? Are you feeling anxious? Whatever the predisposing factor is it a genetic thing, or is it some trauma, or is it something going on right now? Any of those things can trigger the anxiety and can actually trigger nutritional deficiency. So say, for example, anxiety runs in your family and you say, well, my mother has anxiety, my grandmother had it, therefore no wonder I have it. But maybe they were eating the same foods that you're eating and it's causing this problem. Maybe they also had trauma. So whatever the cause is, I find that addressing nutrition is going to help. Obviously, if there's some kind of trauma, you need to address that as well. Therapy is great. I team up with a lot of therapists, and they found that once you add in those nutritional components, the therapy goes so much better. And it may be that you need more therapy, you may need less therapy, and it may mean you need no therapy. Maybe it's just biochemical. So again, what I said earlier, it's finding that root cause, and it can be different for each person. But that's a great question because, there's now research showing that PTSD can be made worse if you have low vitamin D, if your cholesterol levels are off, if you have low zinc, low omega-3s. So you may have that nutritional or biochemical propensity to get PTSD, and maybe you're not going to be as affected if you are more nutritionally sound. So it's very, very much intertwined.
Was there some reason why you decided to focus on anxiety and food? What was the catalyst for that?
Well, my own story. I was actually working in corporate America in a computer job, working really long hours, stressed out, overwhelmed with all the pressures of the work, and approaching menopause. I was in perimenopause, late 30s, and I started to get anxious, and I started to have this social anxiety. I actually had some panic attacks, which were terrifying. I had no idea what they were. I thought I was dying. I just remember the racing heart and the clammy skin and the feeling I can't breathe. I've got to get some oxygen. I've got to get some oxygen. And because of my background, I was actually born in South Africa, and we didn't go to the doctor a lot. We used nutritional approaches, and I ate real whole food growing up. I thought, where's this coming from? And the other reason I didn't immediately go to medication is because I had been a rock climber for the previous 10 years. I traveled around Europe backpacking. I've climbed big rock faces in Zion National Park. I've spent the night on a quarter ledge. I've done ice climbing. So I didn't ever consider myself an anxious, timid kind of person. So when this hit, I thought, no, there's got to be something biochemical. I actually went to the doctor. They did a brain scan. They offered me antidepressants. And I said, no, there's something else going on here. And I worked with an amazing naturopath and an amazing nurse practitioner and started to connect the dots and realized it was my adrenals, realized I had gluten issues. I've got this genetic condition called pyroluria, which causes social anxiety, which is triggered by stress. So the stress of the work was making the social anxiety worse, and was also making the PMS worse, and the hormones were playing a role. So I had this perfect storm of all of these things that out of the blue, I thought it was anxiety and the panic attacks was happening, but it was really all of these things working together. And long story short, I changed my diet. I actually had been eating a vegetarian diet at the time. I went back to eating grass-fed red meat and wild salmon and sardines, which is a favorite of mine. Growing up in South Africa, sardines are very popular, and I love to recommend them to my clients. And got on some amazing amino acids, which we're going to talk about today. GABA was life-saving for me. And the anxiety went away and the panic attack stopped. And this was just so amazing to me. I thought, well, I've got to go back to school to learn about it so I could learn about it for myself. And the more I learned, the more I thought this needs to be shared with everyone. And I eventually gave up my job in computers and wrote my book, The Anti-Anxiety Food Solution. And now my mission is to just share this information, because there are just too many people who say, why didn't anyone ever tell me the importance of diet and nutrients when it comes to how I feel emotionally?
Wow, nice. And so then what happened after you wrote the book? You started teaching and traveling?
I teach consumers, women who have anxiety. My focus is working with women because women share. If you feel something works, you want to share it with the world. You want to shout it from the rooftop. So that's my one audience that I focus on. They also take it back to their families. They'll tell their sister, they'll tell their aunt, they'll tell their mother, they'll get the husband involved, they'll get their kids. A lot of moms that I work with have the anxiety, their kids have issues, and once they've figured it out for themselves, they now help their kids, which is absolutely wonderful, because so many kids have got anxiety and panic attacks and ADD and ADHD as well. But the other audience that I really like sharing with are practitioners, because then I can reach more people. So I love to share with therapists. I love to share with health coaches, and it makes their work easier. If you are a health coach or a nutritionist and you are advising your client that gluten is not the best thing to be eating, and that maybe dairy is problematic and they need to get off sugar, if you can use some of the tools that I teach, one of them being the amazing amino acids, it makes it easier for them to quit the gluten. So they're not having to use willpower. So they are addressing the underlying biochemistry. So I teach at events for practitioners. I'm actually launching the Anxiety Nutrition Institute next year, so I can.
Oh, that's exciting!
Practitioners, yes, because it's so powerful, and every single practitioner can use it. They can incorporate this into their practice, because, as you know, anxiety is so prevalent. So many people are stressed, and we could all do with some additional support.
I totally agree. So you mentioned this, practitioners building their practice. So a lot of people are listening. They are either nutritionists or aspiring nutritionists, health coaches or aspiring health coaches. Are there any kind of, tips or tools that you think help you to have a sustainable practice and a sustainable career? Like, what do you think allows, because you've obviously been doing this for a while, and, more and more health coaches and nutritionists are getting excited about sharing this information. So, I mean, what do you say to practitioners who are trying to, help their clients and build a practice and share these resources?
So let me give a few tips on things that have worked for me. So firstly, the biggest thing that I learned, and I actually did a 2-year program on marketing, because we can be really good at what we do as a nutritionist, but if no one knows we exist, how are we going to help people? So we have to put on this marketing hat, maybe, and mine was online marketing. So I realized if I wanted to reach more people, I had to go online, and that way I can reach more people. I host the Anxiety Summit. I've now done 4, and we've now got 50,000 people that tune into the Anxiety Summit.
Wow.
So as well as working one-on-one, and I love to do the one-on-one work, I like to share with large groups. So thinking about, firstly, learning the marketing aspect. So you can do it and you can feel comfortable doing it. I love to do it because I know if I'm marketing and sharing my information, I'm reaching more people. So you've got to get over that thinking, well, it's not so cool or not so comfortable to market. Maybe change the word to something else if you don't like the word marketing. But that's one aspect. Then the second thing that I learned was to niche, go down to an area that you're very passionate about, and find a focus that you can be the expert on, because people want to work with experts. And when I first started out, I had a general practice, but I knew that anxiety was the area that I wanted to go into. I got the foundations working with anyone who needed help from a nutritional point of view. But then when an opportunity came up to work in Julia Ross's clinic, she's the author of The Mood Cure.
I love her stuff.
I jumped at the opportunity, and I was actually living in Sacramento, and I worked for her clinic, which was 2 hours away, for 2 years. So you've got to jump at opportunities that happen. I would drive down on a Monday morning and spend 3 days there working in her clinic, and then drive back on a Wednesday night. And that was just amazing. 2 years to be learning from an amazing mentor. So find a mentor if you can. I think that is just wonderful. And then other things that I've learned that has really helped me is giving. I do a newsletter once a week, and I write a long article, and I'm sharing good, valuable information with my community. And they love it. They get to know me, and they get to love what I have to offer. I get comments on the blog. And now, because I've got so many comments on the blog, people are finding me by just doing searches. They search for anxiety, or they search for GABA and the amino acids. So I think those are some simple tips.
Those are so good. Those are things that I tell all the women in my community. And I think they need to hear it over and over and over again for them to really kind of embrace it. So you mentioned the GABA, and you seem so excited about the amino acids and the GABA. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how you use it?
Yes, so I use targeted individual amino acids with my clients. And why I say targeted is because it's based on each person's unique needs. And I mentioned earlier that your underlying causes can be different depending on who you are and what the issue is. But most of my clients with anxiety will have an issue with low GABA and low serotonin. So I'll have them do a questionnaire, and we'll see if they have symptoms in the low GABA section or the low serotonin. And let me just tell you what some of those symptoms are. And then I'll share with you how we figure out if they're going to need these individual amino acids. So, for example, if we look at low GABA, you'll have the physical tension. So someone will be sitting in the office with their shoulders hunched up. They'll feel their anxiety in their body. May have the panic attacks as well. And the cravings they'll stress eat. So they're stressed and they eat, or they're stressed and they drink. So a lot of people who come home from work at the end of the day and they're feeling stressed out, they've got to have a glass of wine. That wine is their way to de-stress. So if that sounds like you, and it's very common, then there's an amino acid called GABA, G-A-B-A, gamma aminobutyric acid. It's also a neurotransmitter. And you can take GABA as a supplement, and it can alleviate the symptoms. So what I'll do is I'll say to someone, look at those symptoms that I just described, the physical tension, the tension in the body, in the stomach, maybe super tense muscles, and then you stress eat or you drink wine. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being worst, where do you fall? Okay, I've got this physical tension in my neck the whole time. It's a 9 out of 10. And I definitely drink wine when I come home, and that's a 9 out of 10. Okay, so next time you feel like that, take some GABA. And I like GABA to be used sublingually. You can buy it over the counter. You can buy it through practitioners. Quality is really important when it comes to supplements, just as it is when it comes to food. But find some GABA. I like actually an over-the-counter product called GABA Calm, which is made by Source Naturals. You can just buy it in the health store. And the reason I like it is because it's sublingual, and you can just pop it in your mouth. And within a minute or two, you should start to feel the tension go from the shoulders. And my clients will say to me, if I'm working with them one-on-one, if I'm working with them over Skype, or if we're doing a group program, I'll walk them through what I've just described here. And they'll say, I can feel my shoulders are relaxing. I feel relaxed. I feel like I just had a glass of wine. And what you're doing is, instead of self-medicating with the wine or the chocolate or whatever your drug of choice is, you're using GABA to raise your GABA level. So you're addressing this underlying deficiency that you have, and then you no longer feel that anxiety. And the amazing thing with the amino acids is you will feel results within 1 to 2 minutes if you do this trial. And then over the course of the next week, you're feeling great, and then you continue. It's not a long-term thing. The amino acids are meant to be taken for a month, maybe 2 months, while you're addressing the diet, while you're addressing the stresses in your life and everything else. So they are just really incredible. And yeah, GABA was amazing for me. I took GABA soon after I learned about it, and it stopped the panic attacks completely. And then I had to address the gluten issues, the leaky gut, the pyroluria, all these other things which take longer to deal with. The wonderful thing about the amino acids is it gives you hope right away, because if you've been anxious for a year, if you've been anxious for 10 years, 20 years, some of my clients have been anxious their whole lives, and you just think, well, there's no hope. I've tried all these medications, nothing's working. I've tried therapy, it's helped, but I've still got this anxiety. You take GABA and you feel hopeful. Wow, there's hope. And I'm going to start to feel good. And then I've got this spark, and I can now start addressing all these underlying things. So they really are incredible, and they completely transform my business. And I want to give credit to Julia Roche. She's a pioneer in the use of the amino acids. And I just learned so much from her, and I just want to pay it forward and help more women.
Yeah, she's amazing. I remember reading her books. God, it must be 10 or 12 years ago. They were recommended to me by a nutritionist, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's so cool. And you're obviously really passionate about this. Like, what is it about it that you love so much? Is it the transformation that you see in your clients? Is that what keeps you so excited?
I never get tired of hearing people say how amazing they are, and my life's completely changed. Or, I'm working with my daughter who has Lyme disease, and the doctor put her on an antidepressant, and she started to sort of fantasize about dying, and I was so worried about her. And then I heard you on the Anxiety Summit, and I learned about GABA, and I learned about the social anxiety condition called pyroluria, and I got my daughter on GABA, and she no longer needed the antidepressant, and the anxiety went away while we were dealing with the Lyme disease. So hearing stories like that is just amazing. And I hear them all the time, and people are just blown away about, how effective they are and how quickly they work. Now, I do want to just say they're not for everyone. And a lot of people say this is the magic solution for everyone, but most of my clients will benefit from the amino acids. And if they don't, then the underlying anxiety is not because of low GABA or low serotonin. And I wanted to just swing back to the low serotonin, because I mentioned it and people might be waiting for me to talk about that. The amino acid for that one is tryptophan. And the signs of low serotonin, which a lot of practitioners will probably resonate with, other than the anxiety and the worry and the depression, is the negative self-talk, the perfectionism. And now, who am I to be doing this? So if you resonate with the terminology imposter syndrome, and who am I to be doing this? I'm not qualified enough. I haven't done a master's degree, or I'm, who am I to be going out there teaching other practitioners? Maybe you need to go back and look at your serotonin levels The other classic thing with low serotonin is insomnia. And that's a very common symptom. And we've got to get good sleep so we can be healthy and get out there and share the message. So if any of those symptoms resonate with you, the other thing with low serotonin is afternoon and evening cravings. So for each of these neurotransmitter imbalances, there's a cravings component. There's the mood component and the cravings. And I mentioned with GABA, it's the stress eating, but with low serotonin, it's the afternoon and the evening craving. So if you are a chocolate eater after dinner, or you just need something carbohydrate-y, in the afternoon, and you've got these other symptoms, then addressing those will resolve everything. Ends the cravings, and it addresses that worry, that anxiety, that negative self-talk. And again,
yeah, I love how you connected to the practical, because I'm sure that people can feel the tension in their body or this self-talk, and then they can recognize it immediately. So I love how practical it is. So we're running out of time, and before we do, I want to make sure that people can find out about the summit. When is the next summit happening? And you mentioned another program that's coming up. So if people want to learn more, they want to participate, how do they do that?
So the Anxiety Summit, I've now done 4, and the next one's coming out mid-2017. But right now, anyone can go to theanxietysummit.com and sign up for the next summit and get access to 6 interviews from prior summits. So you can get a feel for what it's like. And I interview all these amazing experts talking about various different aspects related to anxiety, low brain chemicals, the gut, the gluten. I've interviewed Dr. Tom O'Brien, histamine imbalances, benzodiazepines, you name it, all these amazing experts. And it's quite incredible. I've now done 4 of them, and I've got this huge list of people that I want to interview. I just don't have enough time to interview them. There is so many amazing resources out there. And part of my mission, you asked me, all of the tips that I have. Another thing that I think is really important as practitioners is to highlight other practitioners.
Yes.
Because creating those relationships is just so wonderful. I want to support other people. I want to support people who've got something to offer that I don't have to offer. My expertise is the amino acids and the social anxiety condition I mentioned, which we haven't even got to. But there are other experts in gluten, like Dr. Tom O'Brien. He's got this amazing series going on. He's just published this amazing book on autoimmunity. There's experts on the microbiome. I want them to share their expertise. So that's another great tip for practitioners, is collaborating with other practitioners. And that goes back to what I talked about earlier, this niching, having your expertise, because then practitioners are going to want you to come and share your expertise on their summits, on their podcasts, do guest blog posts for them. So it really just works out so beautifully. It really does.
I totally agree. And I think that it's important that we have those relationships and collaborations so that we can serve people better. There's no competition. There's just, there's just a community of practitioners. And if we support each other, then we can all be more successful.
Yes. And that brings to mind J.J. Virgin's wonderful quote. We're both in the same group with her. She says, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if we can all help each other, we're going to then help more people, which is so perfect. And I agree. No competition. There's enough people out there that need our help that we can all work together.
And listeners can also find you at everywomanover29.com, right? Yes. That's a good place to find you as well.
That's my website, and I've got a blog that I produce every week, and tons of comments. Some of my blogs have got 600 comments, which is amazing.
Wow.
And I answer all of them, and it's created this community. So the other thing for practitioners is to really interact with your community. You serving them firstly, but I'm learning. They're serving me because they ask me questions and I say, oh, I've never heard about this. And I go and research it. And then I've got another whole blog that I can share with them. And, I learn from them and they learn from me. So it's really wonderful. So
you're so great, Trudy.
And then, of course, my book, The Anti-Anxiety Food Solution. A lot of practitioners use that for themselves. It's useful for them to learn and then also to give out to their clients. So that's another great resource.
Trudy, we love you and we love the work that you're doing. It's so desperately needed, and people need to get back to whole food and get back to balance and feeling good. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Gabby. It's been wonderful talking to you. I love your energy and your smile and your enthusiasm. It's great.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. You can join the Women in Wellness Club at women-in-wellness.com.